Hello humans, it's Stephen again. You're looking at the Puma GTB. It's a car from Automobilista's Brazilian Touring Classics DLC, and that's not easy to say. Anyway, next you're going to see a fairly hectic hot lap, and then I'll do a very quick race against the AI. See you on the track. I had to press a cold flannel to my face after that lap. Apologies for the dodgy editing, but I'm no Steven Spielberg. Two things I should mention. This race is taking place at Curvelo, which is a new Brazilian circuit. If you'd like to know more about the circuit, I made a video about it last year. I'll put a link in the video description, and I'll try to put one of those fancy placards with a link in it at the end of the video. Secondly, if you'd like to know more about this Puma, the GTB, and the other three Pumas produced by Automobilista, I can recommend Billy Strange's review. It's exemplary in every respect. There's the added bonus that Billy is an experienced racing driver himself, and he knows what he's talking about. So I'll put a link in the video description, and hopefully, again, another placard. But back to me. When it comes to driving hints and styles, please remember that I'm a sim racer, a middle-aged man sitting in front of a toy steering wheel, so take everything I say with a large pinch of salt. This race is going to be 3 laps against the AI. We'll keep it short and sweet. Let's get on with it. Now, GTB stands for Gran Turismo Brazil. So this is a big heavy car designed to eat up long roads, and it's not really designed to be flung around tight tracks like this, which makes it all the more fun. It's front-engined, rear-wheel drive. It's got a 4-gear 8-shifter, and it is, to all intents and purposes, an American muscle car. It's got a inline 6-cylinder Chevy power plant and Opala in the front. And begs the question, why is an American muscle car Brazilian? Well, in the 1970s, the political situation in Brazil, I nearly said Brexit, was such that high tariffs meant that manufacturers like VW and General Motors couldn't afford to sell their cars in Brazil and were forced to open factories in the country. And local car manufacturers took advantage of this and used the parts produced by those factories to make their own vehicles, and Puma has a long history of that. So you could call this a glorified kit car, but that would be a little patronising. Now, speaking of tariffs, the GTB was apparently the most expensive car in Brazil for a number of years. And that was partly because it had a full leather interior, no doubt in a sort of nicotine beige, because it was the early 1970s, of course, and that colour was compulsory. It had electric windows and air conditioning. And they were so sought after, and production was so slow, that apparently they were more expensive second-hand than they were brand new from the factory. Now, you might think that with all that kit like power windows and air conditioning and a massive Chevy in the front, that the car would weigh an awful lot. Well, yes, it does. It's not light, but surprisingly, it has fiberglass bodywork. So it's quicker than you might think. Although, it has to be said, the acceleration speed from 0 to 60 miles an hour, or 100 kilometers an hour, is rather glacial. It takes 12.5 seconds to get there. And it has a supposed top speed of 120 miles an hour, but I found that I can get it up to 130 quite easily with a bit more to spare, which I think is why there's a slight balance of performance problem with these cars. They're part of the FL class in Automobilista, and they're a great deal quicker than most of the other cars in a straight line, including the Fusca, which was previously the quickest car of them all. Nearly lost it. Talking and driving, my nemesis. Now, this is the S1, the earliest iteration of this car, which is basically built between 73 and 76, 1977. The S2 was rather more European in appearance, whereas this looks like a classic American muscle car. I would have liked to see Automobilista include the S3 and S4 for the following reasons. The S4 had a turbo in it, which must have made the car a complete handful. The S3, believe it or not, ran on Brazilian sugarcane alcohol. Talk about drinking and driving. Now, how is it to drive? Well, Billy Strange made the excellent point that you have to let the car roll through the corners. And I find it to be a very sedate drive, as long as you don't push it. But as soon as you start trying to squeeze a bit of extra speed out of it, you suddenly find yourself in a wrestling match, and it's great fun. You have to keep up the momentum, and you can swing the car through the corners. The back end will step out quite nimbly. Lift off over, steer, and there we go. You can just make the rear end of the car step out with a bit of throttle. I'm not saying it's fast, but it's certainly fun. It also kills the tyres, but as this is only a short race, it doesn't really matter. The audio is okay. It's because it's an Opala it seems that Automobilista have used the same audio files as the stock content Opalas, which is fair enough. It's logical, but a little disappointing. I love this corner. There we go. Throttle off and then just swing the back end through the middle of the S. And if you hold a multi-class race in Automobilista with the two other types of Opalas and the Brazilian touring cars, you'll have a lot of fun. You can see how much time you can make up simply by getting the back end to swing around a bit as you go through a corner. So, do I recommend it? Yes. It's a lot of fun. Not exactly the most in-depth review, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll just stop the car here, annoy the marshals, and say thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.